Bob and I first met 30 years ago because he was performing in a comedy group with the person who at the time was my best friend. The three of them were performing up in Cape Cod in a town called Provincetown, and I went up to visit my friend and stayed at the house where they all lived while they were performing, and we all just got along really well. Bob had a boyfriend at the time, and so we were just friends. But then just over the years, we would see each other a lot. After not having seen him for many, many, many years, because he had moved to Los Angeles when he was performing on The Tonight Show and when he had his HBO special. So he lived out there for 9 years. But after that, he moved back to New York because he missed it. And we were in a writer's group together. After not having seen me for so many years, he liked me in a way that he had never admitted all these years. And he came after me like a dog with a bone. Bob was first diagnosed with ALS 8.5 years ago. We got together as a couple 9.5 years ago. So we'd been together about 10 months. ALS is also called Lou Gehrig's disease because of the famous baseball player, the New York Yankee, supposedly had the disease. And of course, Bob was told initially, you have Lou Gehrig's disease. And Bob, even though he received this devastating news, the way he dealt with it being a comedian, his first thought was, and he said this aloud to the doctor, was, wow, I don't even like baseball. My initial reaction was, I don't know enough about this. I'm going to have to do a little research. Everything I read was devastating, so it was very, very difficult. My first thought, though, was that I was trying to make Bob feel better because I knew he was really scared and upset, so I didn't really feel that much for a month or so before I really realized just how scared I was. And it probably took me a year before I was not in denial about the truth of it. Bob's first thought was that he was really worried that his daughter would have it as well because some forms of ALS are hereditary, and Bob had a newborn daughter that he fathered for this lesbian couple that we're still very close with. Luckily, he felt relieved when we found out that Bob's daughter did not have the gene. Once he found out that his kids were going to be okay, his next biggest worry was that in several years he would no longer be able to write, which is the most important thing for him. Though it's much harder for him now, he can still manage to write every day and has done some of his best writing. The general diagnosis for people with ALS is that they usually die within 4 or 5 years. And though there's definitely been a lot of depreciation of his physical capacity, he's considered in the top 1% of slow progressors in the world right now. In terms of keeping a positive attitude, I think the best thing is just trying to stay in the present as much as possible and trying not to worry about everything that could go wrong. But the thing that helps the most is whenever I have a bad day, and believe me, I have a lot of bad days just like everybody else, one of the jokes in our house is, I've had a bad day, but I don't have ALS. So I'm okay. I guess I get some of the energy from the fact that I'm very lucky that even though I work a lot, I like the work I do, and the work I do is very emotionally enriching. I'm a writer, so I get to be creative, and I get to be around creative people. I'll tell you, the greatest thing of all, though, is the fact that Bob is a comedian, and I also have a good sense of humor, and we can make fun of Bob's problems. Bob makes fun of his problems. He makes fun of the problems we are having around him. That makes everything so much easier. We never have to be too careful with each other about that. I think that's helped the most.